I met Alara on a Tuesday in October, at a wine bar in Georgetown. I'd wandered in purely by accident. 6 months back from deployment. Honorable discharge. A chest full of commendations I kept in a drawer, and hands that still reached for weapons that weren't there when I heard sudden noises. The VA counselor said I was adjusting well. The mirror said otherwise. She was alone at the marble bar. Fingers wrapped around a glass of red she hadn't touched. Designer clothes that whispered money, but worn like armor. Posture perfect. Eyes distant. The kind of woman who'd learned to command a room by pretending she wasn't in it. Every instinct told me to keep walking. But something about the way she sat there, like she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. I recognized that. I slid onto the stool 2 seats down. Ordered a whiskey I didn't really want. We sat in silence for a while. 2 strangers in our own private wars. Then I felt her looking at me. I turned. Her eyes. Christ, her eyes held the same fractured look I'd seen in combat medics after the bad days. The ones where you save 3 and lose 7. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. Not the polite, casual kind people ask without wanting an answer. The real kind. The kind that came from someone who knew what not okay looked like. I opened my mouth to respond, to say something, anything. But she was already standing, already reaching for her coat. Like she'd surprised herself by asking. Like she'd broken some rule she'd set for herself. "Wait," I started. But she was moving. Fast. Graceful. Gone. I turned back to the bar for maybe 2 seconds. Maybe 3. When I looked at the door, she'd vanished into the Georgetown night. Her wine glass still sat there. Untouched. Full. Like she'd been a ghost. I should have forgotten about her. Should have finished my drink and gone home. But those eyes. I couldn't shake it. Couldn't shake her. The second time I saw Alara, she was standing in the rain outside Walter Reed Medical Center at 2 a.m. Staring at the building like it might detonate. I'd just finished a 72-hour psychiatric hold. Not voluntary. The kind where they take your belt and shoelaces and check on you every 15 minutes. 6 months back from Yemen. Honorable discharge with a flag in my file that meant broke but not broken enough to keep. The VA psychiatrist had signed my release with the expression of someone who knew I'd probably be back. She stood there in the rain, designer coat soaked through, mascara running. No umbrella. No movement. Just frozen. I should have kept walking. "Hey!" I called out. "You need help." She turned fast. Too fast. Hand diving into her purse before stopping. Self-defense training. Recent, from the way she moved. When she saw me, really saw me, something in her face changed. Not relief. Recognition. Like she was looking at someone who spoke the same language of damage. "I'm fine," she said. The lie was practiced. Just working up the courage. For what? Her voice cracked. To go inside and identify my sister's body. But I can't. I didn't leave her side for the next 4 hours. Went inside with her. Sat in those awful waiting rooms with fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. Held her coat while she signed papers with shaking hands. When they finally let her see Emma, I waited outside. She came out 20 minutes later. Face dry but destroyed. We ended up in the hospital cafeteria at dawn. Coffee neither of us drank. Silence that felt easier than words. Her name was Alara Brennan, not Ashford. That was the first thing she corrected when I bought her coffee 3 hours later in the hospital cafeteria that smelled like industrial cleaner and grief. "My father is Richard Ashford," she said, wrapping both hands around a cup she hadn't touched. "Ashford Technologies. You've probably heard of them." I hadn't, but I nodded anyway. "Emma and I both use our mother's maiden name professionally." She insisted on it. Said she wanted us to build something that wasn't already built for us. She looked out the window at the DC skyline. Emma took it further. Moved here, kept Dad at arm's length, wanted to prove she could make it on her own. I think that made it easier. She was isolated, vulnerable, exactly what men like him look for. My little sister. She was 26. She was supposed to visit me in San Francisco next month. We were going to do wine country. She wanted to. She stopped. Reset. The official report says accidental overdose. Anxiety medication. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. Her voice went hard. It wasn't an accident. I waited. Emma didn't take medication. Any medication. Our mother, drugs were what made my mother. She caught herself. Stopped. Emma watched what happened. She wouldn't even take an aspirin without calling me first. She was terrified of pills. So I know this wasn't an accident. She pulled out her phone. Showed me a photo. Emma. Younger than Alara, softer features, same dark eyes. Standing next to a man in his late 30s. Expensive suit. Hand on her waist like ownership. Julian Vance, Alara said. Venture capitalist. His family's been in DC since the Reconstruction. Not as wealthy as ours, but connected in ways money can't buy. Judges. Senators. People who owe favors. And you think he killed her? I know he did. She pulled up another photo. Emma in a hospital bed, arm in a cast, smiling weakly at the camera. This was 8 months ago. She called me from the ER. Said she fell down the stairs at Julian's house. I flew out the next day, but she insisted she was fine. That it was an accident. That I was overreacting. She swiped again. Another photo, Emma with a neck brace. 3 months before that. Car accident on an empty road. Before that, a mugging where nothing was stolen but she had a concussion. Her hands were shaking. I knew something was wrong. I begged her to leave him. Offered to fly her to San Francisco, set her up with security, everything. But she kept saying she could handle it. That she loved him. That he just had a temper but he was getting better. She looked at me with eyes full of guilt. I believed her. I got busy with my residency and I believed her reassurances and I let my little sister stay with a man who was killing her slowly. What kind of person does that make me? The way she said it. The way her voice didn't break but should have. I recognized that too. The military teaches you to compartmentalize. To keep functioning when everything inside you is screaming. She'd learned that same skill somewhere. I thought about my own sister, Melissa, 12 years older than me, practically raised me after our parents died in a car crash when I was 7. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep us out of foster care, made sure I had what I needed, pushed me toward the military because she knew I needed structure. She died 3 years ago. Aneurysm. Sudden and brutal. I'd been deployed when it happened. Made it back 2 days after the funeral. It makes you human, I said quietly. Sometimes the people we love most are the best at hiding how much they're hurting. Because they don't want us to worry. Don't want to be a burden. You sound like you know. Yeah, I said. I do. My father tried to get justice, she continued. He called in every favor he had, hired investigators, and even got senators involved. But Julian's family, their old DC power, the case went nowhere. She set down the phone. The police ruled it accidental. Case closed. Julian gets to walk free. And Emma gets buried like she was just some tragedy that couldn't be prevented. Ilara's eyes finally met mine. Why are you still here? Why haven't you left? Because you asked if I was okay, I said quietly. At the bar. Before you disappeared, you looked at me like you actually wanted to know the answer. She blinked, like she'd forgotten. Then, I need help. Real help. Not lawyers or investigators who give up when things get hard. I need someone who knows how to fight when the system is rigged against you. She looked at me with those same fractured eyes from the bar. You're military. I can see it in the way you stand. The way you watch exits. The way you waited outside that room like you were guarding it. She wasn't wrong. Do you know anyone who could help me prove what he did? Anyone who doesn't play by the same rules Julian's people play by? That's when something clicked. The tactical part of my brain that had been dormant since discharge. The part that knew how to plan operations. How to gather intelligence. How to complete a mission when the odds were impossible. Maybe, I said slowly, I know some people. Former military, doing private work now. But Alara, if you're serious about this. I'm serious. Then you need to understand what you're asking. Going after someone like Julian, someone with that much power. It's not just dangerous. It's going to cost you. Maybe everything. She didn't hesitate. He took my sister. He gets to keep living his life like nothing happened while Emma's in a morgue. I don't care what it costs. The way she said it, I'd heard that tone before. In soldiers who'd lost their brothers. In people who'd decided that revenge was worth dying for. Okay, I heard myself say. Tell me everything. She pulled up more photos. Emma's apartment. Her artwork. Her friends. She met Julian at a gallery opening 2 years ago. He pursued her hard. Flowers. Expensive dinners. Weekend trips. She was flattered. He seemed perfect on paper. When did it change? I asked. About 6 months in. Small things at first. He didn't like her friends. Didn't want her going out without him. Started checking her phone. Then came the first accident. The bruises. Each time, she swore she was fine. That I was overreacting. That Julian loved her and was just stressed. I wanted to drag her out of here, but she was an adult. I couldn't force her. Guilt sat heavy in the room. The investigation started with Ko, former Army intelligence, now doing private forensics for clients who valued discretion. I called him from Alara's hotel, the Hay Adams, because apparently when your father owns half of Silicon Valley, you don't stay at Holiday Inn. I need you to look into someone, I said. Quietly. Ko was in D.C. within 12 hours. What he found made everything worse. Julian Vance had been engaged twice before. Both times, the engagement ended suddenly. The first woman, Jennifer Chen, died in a hiking accident in Oregon. The second, Rachel Morrison, committed suicide 6 months after breaking things off. It's a pattern, Ko said, spreading files across Alara's hotel suite. But patterns don't hold up in court. Especially not against someone with Julian's lawyers. Alara stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself. So what do? We get him on record, I said. Audio, video, something he can't explain away. How? That's when Ko pulled up Emma's apartment lease. She kept the place even though she was living with Julian most of the time. Paid through the year. It's still untouched. Police released it yesterday. Alara went pale. I have the keys. We went in at night. The apartment was pristine. Obsessively so. Books alphabetized. Clothes organized by color. Medicine cabinet like a pharmacy display. This is wrong, Alara whispered. Emma was creative chaos. Art supplies everywhere. Laundry on the floor. This isn't her. Ko found the cameras 20 minutes later. 4 of them. Hidden in smoke detectors. Picture frames. All feeding to cloud storage. He was watching everything, Ko said, fingers flying over his laptop. Bedroom, bathroom, kitchen. And look, footage was deleted 3 days ago, right after Emma died. Can you recover it? Already am. What came back made my hands shake. The footage showed Emma, 3 days before her death, frantically packing a bag. She kept checking her phone, movements jerky with panic. Then the door opened. Julian walked in. Come. Controlled. Emma backed away, hands up. The audio was muted, but you could read her lips. Please. I just want to leave. Julian pulled a pill bottle from his jacket, forced it into her hand. When she refused, he grabbed her jaw, squeezed until she opened her mouth, and forced the pills down. One by one. All of them. Then he sat on her couch and watched. For 43 minutes, he sat there, watching Emma Brennan die on her own floor while he checked his phone. When she finally stopped moving, he staged the scene. Positioned the pill bottle. Wiped surfaces. Left. Ilara watched it once. Then she walked to the bathroom and I heard her vomit. When she came back, her face was stone. We take this to the FBI, I said. No. Ilara, you don't understand. Her voice was shaking but controlled. My father already tried. Called in every favor he had. Julian's people buried it. They'll say the footage is doctored. His attorneys will tie it up in motions for years. And even if it makes it to trial, and that's a big if, he'll plead down. Manslaughter. 5 years, out in 3. Then what do you want? She looked at me with eyes that had gone somewhere cold and calculating. I want him to confess. Publicly. In a way he can't take back or lawyer away. I want him destroyed. How? I get close to him. Make him think I believe Emma's death was an accident. That I'm grieving, vulnerable, looking for answers. Men like Julian, they can't resist that. They need to win. And when he thinks he's won. She didn't finish. That's insane, I said. He killed your sister. What makes you think? Because I won't be alone. You'll be there. Ko will be there. And Julian won't see it coming because men like him never think women like me fight back. The way she said it, not desperate, but decided, should have scared me more. Instead, I found myself nodding. Ilara's performance was surgical. She reached out to Julian 5 days after Emma's funeral. A simple text. Thank you for being there for Emma. I'd like to understand who she became in her final years. Coffee? He responded in 18 minutes. Of course. When works for you. They met at Fiola Mare in Georgetown. I watched from a car across the street, earpiece in, every muscle coiled. Julian arrived early. Expensive suit, practiced sympathy. He ordered for Ilara without asking, white wine, Caesar salad, and spent the first 20 minutes performing grief. She was special, he said, touching Ilara's hand across the table. Complicated, but special. I think she'd want us to know each other. Ilara's smile never wavered. I'd like that. He bought it completely. Over 3 weeks, Julian courted Ilara like a campaign. Dinners at 1789. Gallery openings in DuPont. A date at his family's compound in Middleburg where portraits of dead senators watched from the walls. He was building something. Not a relationship, but ownership. Ilara played along perfectly. Laughed at his anecdotes about Stanford. Wore the dresses he complimented. Let him control every detail. But at night, she'd come to my apartment in Arlington and stand in the shower until the water ran cold. I'd wait. Watch her silhouette through the frosted glass, counting the minutes, knowing she was somewhere I couldn't reach. When she finally came out, wrapped in one of my old army t-shirts, hair still dripping, I'd have tea ready. Not because I knew what else to do, but because sitting still felt like failure. I can do this, she'd say when I asked if she wanted to stop. I have to. I understood. Revenge has gravity. Once you start falling, stopping isn't really an option. But I was also seeing something else. The way she'd reach for my hand when the weight got too heavy. The way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. This thing between us, it had started as an alliance. It was becoming something that could ruin everything. Week 2, I started finding excuses to have her stay longer. It's late. Just crash here. Ko wants to review the audio in the morning anyway. The metro's delayed. She never called me on it. And I never said what I really meant. Don't go back to your hotel alone. Don't sit with this by yourself. Let me carry some of it. I didn't know how to say those things. The army taught me tactics and survival. How to clear a room, how to treat a sucking chest wound, how to lead men into situations where some of them wouldn't come back. But they never taught me how to tell a woman I was falling for her while she was pretending to fall for someone else. So I stayed quiet. Made sure there were clean towels. Made sure she ate something. Made sure she knew I was there. Week 3, she stopped going back to the hotel altogether. Just started keeping a bag at my place. Toothbrush in the bathroom. Change of clothes in my closet. We never discussed it. But some nights, after she came back from being with Julian, I'd find her standing at my window at 2 a.m. Arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. I'd get up, stand beside her, not touching, just there. He touched my face tonight, she said once, voice hollow. Told me I was perfect, that Emma never appreciated what he could give her. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth would crack. I wanted to break his hand, she whispered. But instead I smiled and said, "Tell me more." I didn't trust myself to speak. "Does that make me as bad as him?" she asked. Using people. Lying. Pretending to feel something I don't. No. How do you know? Because you're doing it to save someone. He did it to own them. That's the difference. She turned to look at me then. Really look at me. What if I can't turn it off after? What if I pretend for so long that I forget how to be real? I reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Let my hand linger at her jaw. Then I'll remind you. The way she looked at me in that moment. I should have kissed her. Should have told her everything I was feeling. But she was in the middle of a war, and I knew better than to distract a soldier in combat. So I just squeezed her hand and said, "Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." She nodded, went to the couch where she'd been sleeping, and I went back to my bed, knowing I wouldn't sleep, knowing I was in love with a woman who was pretending to love someone else, knowing that if Julian hurt her, if he even looked at her wrong, I'd forget every rule of engagement I'd ever learned. The crack came on week 4. Julian invited Alara to the Kennedy Center Honors. Black tie. Washington's elite. The kind of room where policy changed hands over champagne. Alara wore a gown that cost more than my truck. Emeralds that had been her grandmother's. She looked like she'd been born to that world. Julian couldn't take his eyes off her. "You're stunning," he said, hand possessive on her back. Emma never appreciated events like this. Always wanted to leave early. It was exhausting. "I'm sure you were patient." I tried. But she had problems. Anxiety. Paranoia. Toward the end, she was making accusations. I think that's why he manufactured grief. Perfect performance. Alara touched his arm. "You can talk about it. I want to understand." That's when he started to unravel. They found a quiet corner. Alara kept him talking. About how Emma had been difficult. How she'd refused to see what he was building for them. How her death, while tragic, had been probably inevitable given her mental state. The more he talked, the more the mask slipped. "The truth is," Julian said, voice low, "I gave her everything. She threw it away because she had some fantasy about being independent. She didn't know what she wanted. But you did. Yes. Always." His hand moved to Ilara's face. "Just like I know what you need. You're like Emma, but better. Stronger. You won't make her mistakes." "What mistakes?" He leaned close. The wire in Ilara's necklace would catch every word. "Trying to leave." That's when a woman appeared. Mid-20s. Professional clothes. Terrified eyes. "Julian," she said, "we need to talk." His face went ice. "Kelly, not now." "Yes. I..." She looked at Ilara. "I'm sorry, but you need to know." Julian grabbed Kelly's arm. "Hard enough to bruise. That's enough." "No. She needs to know what you are. What you did to." I said enough. People were turning. Whispers spreading. Julian's carefully built image cracking in real time. Ilara made her choice. "Kelly," she said clearly, "do you know who I am?" Kelly shook her head. "I'm Emma Brennan's sister, and I know exactly what he is." The world stopped. Julian's face cycled through shock, rage, calculation, then settled on something empty and cold. "You've been playing me." "Yes." "Recording me." "Every word." For a second, I thought he'd lunge. But then he saw me cutting through the crowd. Saw Coe by the exit. Saw Miller, my old army contact, positioned near the coat check. Julian wasn't stupid. "This won't hold up," he said quietly. "My attorneys will." "We'll have a hard time," Ilara interrupted, "when the footage from Emma's apartment goes viral tomorrow, along with testimony from 3 other women you've dated, and Kelly's statement about the restraining order you violated 6 times. His face drained. "You should also know," Ilara continued, voice steady, "that my father's attorneys filed a wrongful death suit this afternoon, and the Washington Post has an investigative piece going to print in." She checked her watch. 4 hours. "You're bluffing." Ilara pulled out her phone. Showed him a queued email. 50 recipients. Every major news outlet. 1 tap. "Try me." But Julian didn't confess. Not that night. Instead, he walked out of the Kennedy Center, climbed into his Tesla, and disappeared. 472 hours. Nothing. His attorneys stonewalled. His family circled wagons. The footage Coe had recovered somehow got tied up in legal challenges about admissibility. Ilara started to fracture. "He's going to get away with it," she said on hour 60, pacing my apartment. "He's going to lawyer up and drag this out and..." "He won't," I said. "How do you know?" "Because I'd made a call. To someone from my unit who now worked for the kind of people who don't show up on organizational charts. Trust me." On hour 76, Kelly disappeared from her apartment. No signs of struggle. Just gone. Julian's attorneys immediately claimed she'd left voluntarily. Unreliable witness. Probably paid off by the Ashfords. But then, 6 hours later, Kelly walked into the FBI field office in D.C. with her attorney. And she wasn't alone. She brought Rachel Morrison, Julian's suicide ex-fiancée. Very much alive. Turns out Rachel had faked her death and fled to Canada because Julian had tried to kill her. She had medical records. Police reports she'd filed under a false name. Photos of injuries. A paper trail that, combined with Emma's footage and Kelly's testimony, was enough. The FBI arrested Julian Vance at his office at 6 p.m. on a Thursday. By 9 p.m., his attorneys had negotiated a confession in exchange for avoiding federal charges that would have put him away for life. He pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, witness tampering, and stalking across state lines. 25 years. No parole. Not perfect, but enough. Emma's funeral was held on a cold Saturday in November at the Ashford family estate in Palo Alto. I hadn't planned to go. This was family, old money, a world I didn't belong to. But Ilara's hand found mine the morning of, and she said quietly, "I need you there." So I went. The estate was exactly what you'd expect. Rolling hills, oak trees, a house that had been in architectural magazines. The service was small, intimate. Ilara had insisted on that. Her father, Richard Ashford, was a tall man in his 60s with Ilara's same dark eyes and the kind of posture that came from boardrooms and expectations. He held it together through the eulogy, but his voice broke when he talked about Emma's laugh. She was fearless, he said, looking at the photo of Emma at 22, paint-stained and happy. She wanted to build her own life, her own way. I was so proud of her for that. And I'm so sorry I didn't protect her from the cost of that courage. Ilara's mother had died years ago. Prescription medication, Ilara had said once, voice flat. The kind that starts as treatment and ends as addiction. Emma had been the one to find her. Emma looked like her, apparently. Soft where Ilara was sharp. After the service, Richard approached us in the garden where Emma's ashes would be scattered. "You must be Alex," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm. Assessing. "Ilara told me what you did. What you both did. I'm sorry for your loss, sir. Don't be sorry. Be proud. You gave my daughter justice when I couldn't." His voice was steady, but his eyes were red. I threw everything I had at this. Lawyers, investigators, politicians I've known for 30 years. None of it mattered. Julian's people were too entrenched. He looked at Ilara, then back at me. My daughters both ran from the Ashford name because they wanted to be more than what I built. Emma paid for that choice. But Ilara... He paused. Ilara found someone who didn't see the name or the money. Who just saw her. That's what Emma wanted too. Someone who saw her. Ilara's hand tightened in mine. "Thank you," Richard said quietly, "for seeing my daughter when it mattered most." Later, as we scattered Emma's ashes under the oak tree she'd climbed as a child, Ilara leaned against me. "He means it, you know," she whispered. "About you. About us. He asked if you'd come to Thanksgiving." I looked at her. Would that be weird? Probably. She smiled sadly. "But Emma would have loved you. She always said I needed someone who'd challenge me. Someone real." She scattered the last handful of ashes, and I felt her grief settle into something quieter. Not gone. Just carried. Ilara and I sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial the morning after we returned to D.C. The sun was coming up over the city. It looked clean in that light. Temporary. "Rachel's alive," Ilara said quietly. "Emma saved her without even knowing it. By dying, she made sure Rachel's story would be heard." I took her hand. "Kelly called last night," she continued. "Said she's starting therapy. Going back to school. She thanked me for..." Her voice broke. "I didn't save Emma. I was in San Francisco building my career while she was here dying. You made sure her death meant something. That's not nothing." She turned to look at me. "I'm going back to San Francisco next week. My residency, my life, it's all there. And you're here. We both know what that means." My chest felt hollow. "Yeah." She stood. I thought that was it. She'd walk away and I'd go back to my VA appointments and empty apartment and the slow work of rebuilding. But then she held out her hand. "Or," she said, "you could come with me. Start something that isn't built on revenge or grief. Just us." I looked at her hand. At the possibility of something I'd stopped believing in. I'm not easy, I said. The PTSD, the nightmares. I'm a trauma surgeon who just spent a month dating my sister's murderer. Easy is overrated. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. And you're not broken, Alex. You're just someone who's been through something terrible and came out the other side still trying to be good. That's not damage. That's strength. Something in my chest cracked open. I don't know how to do this, I said quietly. The whole starting over thing. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes I'd never noticed before. Then we'll figure it out together, she said. Besides, I didn't survive all of this just to lose you to your own fear. I took her hand and stood. We left Washington that afternoon. I'd sold everything that mattered before Alara even asked. My truck, a 2015 Ford F-150 I'd bought after discharge, posted it online the day after the Kennedy Center. Sold within 48 hours to a contractor in Fairfax. Furniture went to a veterans charity. The few things I couldn't part with, Melissa's recipe box, my unit photos, the watch she'd given me before my first deployment, fit in 2 duffel bags. Turns out when you've spent most of your adult life in barracks and deployment tents, you don't accumulate much. I had money saved. Not Ashford money, but enough. The army paid well when you had nowhere to spend it, and I'd been careful. Modest investments, a decent savings account, the kind of financial discipline that came from watching Melissa stretch every dollar to keep us afloat. I wasn't rich, but I was solid, dependable, and I'd never needed to be anything else. Drove cross-country because Alara said she needed to remember what the country looked like when you weren't trying to destroy someone. Took 2 weeks. Stopped at diners and overlooks and places that didn't care who we'd been. In Nevada, Alara woke up screaming Emma's name. I held her until dawn. I'm sorry, she whispered when the shaking finally stopped. You didn't sign up for this. I brushed the hair from her face. Alara, I'd go through every nightmare I've ever had if it meant you didn't have to face yours alone. She kissed me then, soft and desperate and real. In Utah, I had a panic attack in a grocery store. She sat with me and counted breaths. We were both still broken. But maybe 2 broken things could hold each other up. San Francisco was fog and hills and the loft apartment Alara's father had bought years ago as an investment. 2 bedrooms, bay windows, rent we could actually afford because he'd quietly transferred the deed to Alara's name after the funeral. He said Emma would have wanted me to have it, Alara explained when I protested, and that he was tired of watching his daughters refuse help out of pride. It was a gift, and for once, Alara let herself accept it. She went back to surgery at UCSF. I started a psychology program at UC Berkeley. The military paid for it through something called the GI Bill. Basically, education benefits for veterans. Helping people put themselves back together felt like it might help me do the same. But something else happened too. Something I didn't expect. I started living. It started with breakfast. Alara worked brutal shifts, 12, sometimes 16 hours in the OR. She'd come home exhausted, barely able to stand. And I'd realized she hadn't eaten anything but vending machine coffee and stolen granola bars. So I learned to cook. Started simple. Scrambled eggs. Toast that wasn't burned. Then I got ambitious. Watched YouTube videos while Alara was at work. Tried recipes Melissa had written in her recipe box. Her chicken piccata. Her Sunday pot roast. The blueberry pancakes she used to make on my birthday. I failed. A lot. Burned garlic. Oversalted pasta. Made rice that somehow came out both crunchy and soggy. But I kept trying. And slowly, I got better. There was something meditative about it. The precision. The focus. The way you had to be present. Really present, or you'd ruin everything. It reminded me of field work, actually. Same attention to detail. Same consequences for mistakes. But instead of tactics and timing, it was heat and seasoning. Instead of taking things apart, I was building something. And when Alara would come home at midnight, dead on her feet, and find a plate of pasta waiting for her, still warm, exactly how she liked it, the way her face would light up, that felt like winning. "You made this?" she'd ask, like she couldn't quite believe it. "Yeah. From scratch. YouTube University. Very prestigious." She'd laugh. Actually laugh. And for a moment, the weight she carried would lift. 6 months later, Ilara's phone buzzed during dinner. I'd made coq au vin. Ambitious, but I was feeling confident. A message from an unknown number. We both stared at it. I remember Emma laughing. Before me. I took that from her. From you. Kelly is alive because you were braver than I ever was. Thank you for that, at least. J**. Ilara read it twice. Then deleted it without responding. Do you think he means it? I asked. I don't know. Maybe guilt does that to people. She looked out at the city. But Emma's still gone. I still lost years with her I can't get back. No. But you made sure what happened to her saved 2 other people. That counts. She kissed me. Soft. Real. Thank you for not running when you learned what I was planning. Thank you for giving me a reason to stop running from who I was. We don't talk about Emma every day anymore. But her photo sits on our bookshelf. Next to it, Kelly's college graduation. She's studying social work now. Says she wants to help people escape the things she almost didn't survive. And Rachel sent a card last month. She's back in the States. Engaged. Building the life Julian tried to take from her. Ilara teaches at UCSF now. Training trauma surgeons. Telling them the work isn't just about saving the body. I'm working toward my doctorate. Specializing in moral injury. Trying to build bridges for people who came home but couldn't figure out where home was. And I still cook. Every night, unless Ilara's on call. Sometimes we eat at the table. Sometimes on the couch with a TV show. Sometimes at 2 a.m. when she finally gets home and I've kept dinner warm. It's simple. Ordinary. The kind of life I never thought I'd have. The kind of life Melissa would have wanted for me. The kind of life Emma deserved. Sometimes Ilara asks if I regret any of it. I don't. Because Emma's death wasn't just tragedy. It became catalyst. For justice. For change. For 2 broken people finding each other and deciding to build something new. The past doesn't let go easily. I still wake up sometimes to sounds that aren't there. Ilara still sees Emma in strangers' faces. But we're here. Together. Building a life that honors the dead by refusing to stop living. And maybe that's the point. We don't get over the things that break us. We just learn to carry them better.